G7 finance ministers hold an emergency meeting today as oil tops $100 a barrel and markets tumble amid the Iran war and President Trump's response to the spike in oil prices. The Iranian regime has named a new leader. What do we know about him and what President Trump has said about any new leadership in the Islamic Republic? Meanwhile, Central Command warns that Iran is launching attacks from civilian areas. And Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the U.S. and Israel will fight until Iran surrenders. Secretary of State Marco Rubio marks Hostage and Wrongful Detainee Day, warning that countries holding Americans will face consequences. President Trump urging Australia to grant asylum to the Iranian women's soccer team. What the team members now face after refusing to sing Iran's national anthem amid the ongoing war. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and his police commissioner Jessica Trish is saying that they're treating a Saturday incident involving explosive devices as an act of ISIS-inspired terrorism.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Our top story: the Pentagon has identified the 7th U.S. service member killed in Operation Epic Fury. The Pentagon announcing that 26-year-old Sergeant Benjamin Pennington of Glendale, Kentucky, died from his injuries on Sunday. He was stationed at an air base in Saudi Arabia, where the Iranian regime attacked the base on the second day of the war. The attack is under investigation. Pennington was part of the U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command. 6 other U.S. soldiers were killed by an Iranian drone attack in Kuwait, also on March 1st. According to Fox News, citing a senior U.S. official, 8 other service members are seriously injured and still fighting for their lives. The Iranian regime has a new leader. Iran's ruling clerical body naming the now deceased ally Khamenei's own son to take his place, a signal that hardliners remain in charge. Here are the details.
The Iranian regime announced the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei shortly after midnight local time.
Everyone was waiting to see who would be the next supreme leader. Now we know and we assume that he will be a continuation of what his father was, which is a very hardline ideological cleric.
The 56-year-old cleric is the son of Ali Khamenei, who was killed when the U.S. and Israel launched strikes against Iran late last month. The newly appointed regime leader has strong connections within Iran's Revolutionary Guard and religious leaders. President Trump earlier said Iran's next leader could face serious consequences if Washington does not approve. The president telling ABC News if he doesn't get approval, he's not going to last long. And Trump previously criticizing the younger Khamenei, calling him a lightweight. Last week, telling Axios that Iran is wasting its time with Khamenei's son, saying he would personally have to be involved with the selection. The leadership change comes as the Iran war intensifies. Israeli forces launching a new wave of attacks over the weekend. Meanwhile, U.S. forces announcing the death of a 7th service member. U.S. Central Command saying the soldier died on Saturday after being seriously wounded during an attack on U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia earlier this month. 6 Army Reserve soldiers were previously killed in an Iranian drone attack in Kuwait. President Trump honoring the fallen troops during a ceremony in Delaware this weekend. In a post on X, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth paid tribute to the soldiers, calling them heroes forever. The White House also weighing in, saying the fallen soldiers represent the very best of America, giving everything in service to our country.
NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch and U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York Jay Clinton are making a public statement announcement following an attempted bomb attack during a protest Saturday outside Mayor Zohran Mamdani's official residence. Let's take a look.
Charges have been filed in the Southern District of New York against 2 individuals, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, in connection with that attack. The defendants are charged with attempting to provide material support to ISIS, using a weapon of mass destruction, transporting explosive materials, interstate transportation and receipt of explosive materials, and unlawful possession of destructive devices. The complaint sets forth the factual allegations supporting those charges. As alleged in the complaint, the defendants were inspired by ISIS to carry out their attack. There should be no confusion about what ISIS constitutes. It is a designated foreign terrorist organization responsible for deadly terrorist attacks across the globe and has taken credit for mass casualty attacks in Europe, the Middle East, and right here in the United States. And as alleged, both defendants have admitted that they acted on Saturday because of ISIS. As Qayyumi was being placed into an NYPD vehicle following his arrest, a person in the crowd asked why he had done this. As shown on NYPD body-worn camera footage referenced in the complaint, Qayyumi responded with ISIS. And at the precinct, after being advised of his Miranda rights and waiving those rights, Qayyumi said in recorded post-arrest statements that he had watched ISIS propaganda on his phone and that his actions that day were partly inspired by ISIS. The complaint also details statements made by Amir Balat after his arrest. En route to the NYPD precinct, Balat made spontaneous statements without being questioned by NYPD officers that were captured on body-worn camera footage. He said, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the Prophet. We take action, as well as, if I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." And later, after waiving his rights, he requested paper and wrote a message declaring in part, "I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kuffar." Now, die in your rage is a commonly known ISIS slogan, and kuffar is an Arabic term that refers to non-believers. He also told investigators that he had hoped to carry out an attack even bigger than the Boston Marathon bombing, which he noted resulted in only 3 deaths. These statements, as set forth in the complaint, make clear that this was not random violence. This was a planned attack motivated by extremist ideology and inspired by a violent foreign terrorist organization. The complaint alleges not only why the defendants acted, but how. Preliminary testing has determined that one of the devices contained triacetone triperoxide, or TATP, also commonly referred to as Mother of Satan, a highly volatile explosive that has been used in multiple terrorist attacks over the last decade. As we have previously discussed, the NYPD identified a vehicle yesterday on East End Avenue that was linked to the defendants. Inside that vehicle, investigators recovered handwritten notes referencing TATP explosive and listing chemical ingredients for the type of explosive device used by the defendants on Saturday. Make no mistake, what happened this weekend was incredibly dangerous, and the ongoing investigation will be exhaustive. From the first moments of that investigation, the NYPD has been working seamlessly with our federal partners, many of whom have joined us here. In particular, the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, which includes NYPD detectives working alongside federal agents. They have been at the center of this investigation. Members of the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, including NYPD task force officers, have executed search warrants at Qayyumi and Balat's residences in Pennsylvania. Another important note, the 2 defendants arrived in New York City roughly 1 hour before they were arrested. According to our investigation, they crossed the George Washington Bridge with a license plate reader ping at 11:36 a.m. on Saturday, parked in front of 48 East End Avenue between 81st and 82nd Streets at 12:05 p.m., and walked to the protest. They ignited and threw the devices at approximately 12:15 p.m. and were immediately arrested thereafter. I want to thank our great United States Attorney Jay Clayton for his extraordinary partnership, as well as the prosecutors from SDNY for everything that they do, especially for their work on this investigation and their forthcoming prosecution. I also want to thank the FBI, especially James Barnacle, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI New York Field Office, and Rob Kassane, the FBI Special Agent in charge for counterterrorism, as well as the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We are grateful always for the FBI agents and assistant U.S. attorneys who have been working around the clock with us since Saturday. Finally, and most importantly, I want to recognize the members of the NYPD who responded on Saturday and in the hours that followed. The officers assigned to that protest who ran toward a lit, improvised, explosive device, the bomb squad technicians who secured and analyzed the devices, the detectives and analysts who worked through the night to develop this investigation, and the countless members of service who helped ensure the security of the people of New York City during a very tense and dangerous situation. The NYPD remains on heightened alert, and our mission is simple, and that is to keep New Yorkers safe. That responsibility belongs to the nearly 35,000 members of this department who stand watch over this city and who are prepared to respond whenever and wherever danger appears. On Saturday, we saw that commitment in action. Thank you. Now I will turn it over to our United States Attorney, Jay Clayton.
Thank you, Commissioner Tisch. I'm very proud to be here today with Commissioner Tisch and Director Barnacle representing this joint effort to keep our city safe. And I'm going to pick up where the Commissioner left off. I watched the video of New York Police Department officers running to the danger, knowing that these might be explosive devices, knowing that they might explode. That is the kind of commitment that makes this city great. Thank you. Thank all your officers. It's tremendous. It makes me so proud as a New Yorker. As Commissioner Tisch noted, we charged two individuals today, Balat and Kayumi. They are charged federally with 5 counts. Attempted provision of material support and resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Use of a weapon of mass destruction. Transportation of explosive materials. Interstate transportation and receipt of explosives. And unlawful possession of destructive devices. The facts alleged in the complaint are just that, allegations. In our great system of justice, they must be proven, and the defendants have the presumption of innocence. Commissioner Tisch did an exceptional job outlining the facts alleged in the complaint. These were ISIS-inspired actions, and it is chilling that they wanted to do something more than the Boston Marathon, more than 3 deaths. Free speech and peaceable assembly are the bedrock of American democracy. But violence is not protected. And it's not protected protest. It's not protected speech. In New York, violence, particularly violence that has a terrorist bent, violence that is meant to chill free speech, violence that is meant to keep us from assembling peaceably, will be met with swift justice. This investigation remains ongoing, and we encourage anyone with further information to contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, C-A-L-L-FBI. In closing, I want to express my deep gratitude for, again, the NYPD and all of those folks in my office who immediately answered the call and worked around the clock. In particular, the heads of our National Security and International Narcotics Unit, Eleanor Tarlow and Jason Richmond, and our line U.S. attorneys, who I don't think have slept, which is why we are here so quickly, Jonathan Bodonsky and Jane Chong. Thank you all very much. I'll now turn it over to Director Barnacle.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Clayton. My name is James Barnacle. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's New York Field Office. Today, alongside our partners in New York City Police Department and the Southern District of New York, our office has announced federal terrorism charges against Amir Balat and Ibrahim Kayumi. On Saturday, March 7th, these two individuals allegedly threw one suspicious device and attempted to throw another during a protest outside Gracie Mansion. As the Commissioner noted, if it weren't for the bravery of two New York's finest, we could have had a much more tragic incident. Yesterday, on Sunday, March 8th, a third device was recovered from a vehicle on East End Avenue. Upon careful analysis by NYPD bomb techs and FBI special agent bomb technicians, it was determined that these items were improvised explosive devices, IEDs, designed to inflict serious injury and death to those in the vicinity of the intended blast zone. Both subjects have stated they were inspired by ISIS, a designated terrorist organization, to conduct this attack. Balat and Qayoumi sought to incite fear and mass suffering through this alleged attempted terror attack in the backyard of an elected city official. This weekend was just another example of the elevated threat environment we're currently living in. Let me be clear. The FBI will not tolerate those who use violence against targets in New York City to broadcast their terroristic ideologies. This would not have been possible. The outcome we're talking about today would not have been possible without the FBI's New York Joint Terrorism Task Force, led by Special Agent in Charge Rob Hussein, our Special Agent Bob technicians, as well as our partners at the NYPD and the Southern District of New York. I would like to thank Commissioner Jessica Tisch for your department's unwavering partnership, and especially for the bravery of your officers who ran towards danger to protect this city and our residents. Thank you, U.S. Attorney Clayton, for your team's determination to bring weighty criminal charges against these defendants and hold them accountable for the reprehensible actions from this past weekend. Additionally, I'd like to extend my appreciation to the Customs and Border Protection, the Port Authority Police Department, the New York State Police, Homeland Security Investigations, as well as the FBI divisions in Newark, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Those offices assisted us throughout the weekend. The collective efforts across all these agencies, including those who could not join us today, thwarted a potentially devastating day in this city. Rest assured, the FBI and the New York City Police Department remain at the ready to defend the homeland against anyone seeking to harm our community. We're continuing to chase down all leads and tips in this ongoing investigation. As U.S. Attorney mentioned, anyone that has tips out there, we encourage you to call the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can submit your tips online at fbi.gov. Thank you. Turn it over to Commissioner for any questions.
All right, so we will now take any questions you have on topic only, please. We will do our best to answer, but as I mentioned at the earlier press conference today, we may be limited in some of the things we can say because we don't want to say anything that will in any way make these fine prosecutors' work more difficult.
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, we do on-topic questions. Go to Gloria first.
Thank you very much. I hear what you said about what the individuals stated regarding ISIS, but do you have any information yet about whether they were self-radicalized or actually recruited by ISIS? And is there anything you can say about whether they were targeting anything or any person specifically? The mayor said earlier today that it was known this protest was going to take place for about a week. So did they come here specifically to target that group, or were they targeting the mayor, any other group?
So we're not going to be able to answer the first question at this time for the reasons I stated earlier. It is clear that they showed up in front of Gracie Mansion for their planned counter-protest in response to the original protest that was planned by a Jake Lang-affiliated group.
So your name and address, Bloomberg News. Both of these suspects have extensive Middle East travel histories, which may be inconsequential. They both are Middle Eastern. How are you squaring that with this attack? And then secondly, can you just talk about the nature? These are two young men, not even 21, and the nature of radicalization reaching young people.
So on the first part of your question, we're not able to answer that at this time, although, of course, as part of our investigation, we are aware of international travel. And I'm going to ask Rebecca Weiner, our Deputy Commissioner of Intel and Counterterrorism, to talk about radicalization of youth. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is very much in keeping with a trend that we are seeing among ISIS-inspired adherents, both in the country as well as throughout the West. Younger and younger individuals who are radicalizing and mobilizing to violence. And this is taking place against the backdrop of social media, the dynamics of online culture. It's not limited to ISIS. It's across the ideological spectrum. Younger people mobilizing to violence, something we're tracking very closely.
Have any of, Jerika Duncan from CBS News. Had any of these two individuals been arrested before? Do they have any type of record? And how much time are they facing? And if I could get a third question in, can you describe how destructive those devices could have been? How many people could have been impacted if they were successful?
So I believe that the two individuals in question do not have criminal histories or criminal backgrounds. And Rebecca, if you could explain more about that IED and TATP specifically and what it was capable of.
As the Commissioner mentioned, TATP is highly dangerous and extremely volatile. And the NYPD and FBI bomb squads and bomb technicians did do controlled detonations of the two IEDs from the protest, which revealed a significant explosion. It's really important to note that had these IEDs functioned the way the perpetrators allegedly wanted them to, they could have caused death, destruction, extremely dangerous compound, an extremely dangerous place deployed.
For Commissioner Tisch, and I think also for Commissioner Weiner, what was the assessment of this event in the days leading up to it in terms of your concerns, A and B? What role did SRG play? Were they there in a primary capacity or in a backup capacity?
So we had been planning for this protest for several days. Whenever there is both a protest and a counter-protest, that's something that the NYPD plans for very deliberately to avoid confrontations and for all of the other reasons you might expect. So this was no different, and there had been very thoughtful preparation for this event due to the combined protest, counter-protest, and the location.
And I can just answer the question about SRG. SRG was in the area of the protest. They were there on in a backup capacity. We often have SRG around in an area if we think that it has the potential to get heated, so they were there. They were brought in after mayhem, as soon as mayhem ensued.
How do you make that assessment, primary or
we got to keep moving, Rocco. Apologies.
Well, just a quick follow-up. How do you make that assessment?
Our commanders on the ground will make the assessment about when to call in SRG. But certainly with this protest, we did have SRG on standby and prepared because we thought it had the ability to get interesting, given who was there.
Thank you. Marino? Sorry. You got it. Commissioner, Joe Marino, New York Post. Commissioner, are you looking at changing your posture towards policing protests, given the fact these two individuals were not known to you? And is it causing you to reassess like additional resources you may need from an intelligence or patrol standpoint?
So as you know, the NYPD remains on heightened alert. We really have been on heightened alert since the hostilities in Iran broke out about 1 week ago, which means extra counterterrorism deployments, heavy weapons teams, drones, aviation. This department, in particular, our intelligence and counterterrorism unit and teams have been out there in full force for the past week, as they are anytime something happens either in the city or around the world that we feel we need to deploy for. Look, this incident did occur at a protest, but it didn't have to have occurred at a protest. So this doesn't change our posture specifically on protests. The NYPD has been policing protests and ensuring New Yorkers' ability to exercise their First Amendment rights safely and lawfully for decades, but never more so, frankly, than over the past 2.5 years, where we have just seen a huge increase in the number of protests, and our officers, both our community affairs officers, our patrol officers, and our SRG officers are well trained and certainly well practiced at doing so.
Thanks, Brett. Hey, Commissioner, thank you. Given the threat picture that you've been outlining, how worrying is it that a couple of guys from Bucks County can just drive into Manhattan with potentially viable devices? Is it alarming, and is there anything you can do to stop it?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So when we talk about heightened threat environment and when we talk about lone actor threat, this is another incredibly sobering reminder. We had one just a week ago in Austin, Texas. And that's the reason that we surge our personnel, as the Commissioner just mentioned, we've been doing since the onset of the war overseas in Iran for the last 10 days to harden targets. Of course, some individuals will mobilize to violence without tripping the wires that we extensively set. And in that point, then it is the bravery of our officers who contend with a threat as it's unfolding on our streets, and in this case, incredibly bravely.
And I would just add there's a few pieces to this, right? There is our intelligence and counterterrorism operation, and I have to say there is no other city in the world that has an intelligence and counterterrorism capacity quite like the NYPD's. But then, as Deputy Commissioner said, we also have our well-trained officers on the ground doing deployments to catch anything.
Tony DeStefano, Newsday. I guess this is for Commissioner Weiner. The two devices, were they both assayed as being TATP?
I can do that.
The Assistant Director talked of the third device being an improvised explosive. Was that also known quantity of TATP or something else?
So let's talk about the first two devices first. They were both brought on Saturday to Rodman's Neck, where our bomb technicians and FBI experts looked at them jointly. We assessed quite comprehensively one of the devices, and we determined that that device contained TATP. We didn't do the same type of thorough investigation of the second device, but instead decided to neutralize the two devices and take samples from both devices and send them over to an FBI lab where further testing, including for the existence of TATP in the second device, will be done.
And that was NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch giving updates on the two individuals that were arrested during the protest. And they're charged with 5 counts federally, including the use of a weapon of mass destruction and connections as well to a terrorist organization. And Jessica Tisch saying that ISIS had an influence on their actions. Okay, moving on. U.S. Central Command warns Iranians that the regime is using heavily populated civilian areas to conduct military operations. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the story, including comments from War Secretary Pete Hegseth and President Trump.
CENTCOM says the Iranian regime has been launching one-way attack drones and ballistic missiles from civilian areas and cities including Dezful, Isfahan, and Shiraz. The command says locations used for military operations can lose their protected status under international law and may become legitimate military targets. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth was asked about a CBS News report that Russia is providing intelligence to Iran on U.S. positions and movements, speaking on 60 Minutes.
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that, but the only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
Hegseth discussing President Trump's recent comments that there would be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender.
It means we're fighting to win. It means we set the terms. We'll know when they're not capable of fighting. There'll be a point where they'll have no choice but to do that. Whether they know it or not, they will be combat ineffective. They will surrender.
Hegseth saying the fight with Iran was never meant to be fair.
Our capabilities are overwhelming compared to what Iran's are. And frankly, when you combine our Air Force with the Air Force of the Israeli Defense Forces, it's the two most powerful air forces in the world.
Asked about the possibility of U.S. boots on the ground, Hegseth saying the administration will not discuss operational limits publicly.
We're willing to go as far as we need to in order to be successful. We want the Iranians guessing and second guessing and triple guessing what we might be willing to do, because under President Trump, we just might, and they need to factor for that.
Meanwhile, the Israeli military yesterday saying it attacked the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' aerospace force in Tehran. Israel also says 2 Israeli soldiers have been killed at the country's northern border with Lebanon. Israel's military chief of staff warning yesterday the Iran war could take a long time.
Right now, we need to show perseverance and patience. It will take a long time. You need to be prepared for that. And however long it takes, it will take.
The Israeli military says an overnight strike by its navy killed 5 top commanders in Iran's IRGC. It said they served in the Quds Forces Palestine and Lebanon Corps and were involved in funding, arming, and providing intelligence to terror groups Hezbollah and Hamas.
I tell you that there is no safe place for the Iranian branches of evil anywhere in the Middle East, not in Beirut and not anywhere else.
And huge fires burned in Iran's capital yesterday in the aftermath of Israeli attacks on oil infrastructure. Israel struck 4 oil storage tankers and a petroleum transfer terminal overnight. Israel's military said the oil depots were being used by Iran's military for fuel to launch missiles. President Trump says the timing of ending the war with Iran will be decided with input from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump says the 2 leaders are in close contact. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio delivered remarks today at the U.S. hostage and wrongful detainee flag-raising ceremony. Rubio had some strong words for the Iranian regime.
They are trying to hold the world hostage. They are attacking their neighbors. They are attacking neighboring countries, their energy infrastructure, their civilian population. They're attacking embassies. This is a terrorist government. This is a terroristic regime. And we are seeing them conduct terrorism using nation-state elements, using weapons like missiles and one-way attack drones. And the objective of this mission is to destroy their ability to continue to do that. The United States is currently engaged in an operation targeting one of the world's leading hostage taker, the world's leading sponsor of terrorism, the regime in Iran. And first, I think we would all take a moment both to offer our thoughts, our prayers, and our condolences, and to honor the families of those who have fallen, the 7 Americans who have lost their lives in the initial hours of this operation. And we're here on the 3rd U.S. Hostage and Wrongful Detainee Day, and it's a day that exists because families and loved ones families refuse to let their loved ones be forgotten. We have this day to celebrate those who returned, to honor those who perished in captivity, and commit to returning those who are still in detention and holding also the perpetrators of this accountable. Last year marked 10 years.
Rubio said the U.S. has designated Iran a state sponsor of wrongful detention, warning that any country holding American citizens will face consequences. Rubio credited President Trump with making the return of detained Americans a priority, saying more than 100 have been brought home since his inauguration. Rubio says the Trump administration won't stop until every single unjustly detained American is returned home. The event also commemorated former FBI agent Robert Levinson, who also disappeared in Iran 19 years ago and is believed to have been died in captivity. The Group of 7 nations ruling out the use of strategic oil reserves for now. The French finance minister says the group is not yet ready to release reserves. He made the comment after chairing a meeting of G7 finance ministers in Brussels. He says the G7 remains prepared to take coordinated steps if needed. Those steps could include using strategic oil stockpiles to stabilize markets. Soaring oil prices triggered global market turmoil today. S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite both dropped over 1% at the open and bell this morning in New York. The Dow Jones slid nearly 700 points. And crude oil briefly jumped above $119 a barrel this morning before dropping back down. It comes as supply through the Strait of Hormuz remains almost completely halted. Stock markets around the world have reacted sharply. The pan-European Stoxx 600 fell for a third straight session, down nearly 2% after shedding over 5% last week. Asian markets also tumbled, with Japan's Nikkei 225 dropping over 5% and South Korea's Kospi sinking 6%. President Trump says higher oil prices a very small price to pay for safety and peace as the Iran war continues. The president adding, quote, only fools would think differently. Here's Energy Secretary Chris Wright addressing rising gas prices on Fox News.
Yeah, the plan is to get oil and natural gas and fertilizer and all the products from the Gulf flowing through the straits before too long. And I may break a little news here, but one large tanker has already gone through the straits with no issues at all. So as the general just described, we're massively attriting their ability to strike with missiles and drones. And that rate of attrition will increase in the coming days. So we'll be cautious, we'll be careful, but energy will flow soon.
Wright says energy markets are massively well supplied. The Energy Secretary says the recent run-up in prices has nothing to do with any shortage of oil or natural gas. He added that the culprit is fear and perception of the unknown, that the Iran war could be some long drawn-out crisis. Meanwhile, Trump administration officials yesterday defended a decision to temporarily lift some sanctions on Russian oil. Officials say it's a 30-day pause to allow the millions of barrels of oil that are sitting on ships to go to Indian refineries. The Iranian regime naming Khamenei's son as new leader, but President Trump said that Iran's new leader is not going to last long if he is not approved by the United States. We talk about this after the break. Stay with us.
Getting prescription glasses from Select Specs is easier than you might think. Select your frames from our £6 range in-house brands or our extensive designer collections. Then enter, upload or email your latest prescription and our website will analyze it and help you select the best lenses and options to suit you. Click to place the order and your new Select Specs glasses are delivered right to your door. Ordering your prescription glasses is as easy as 1, 2, C with Select Specs at selectspecs.com.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today. Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Looking to refresh the style in your house? Come to Mathis Home during the Spring Style event and see hundreds of options for your perfect living room. Take a look at this sectional. We can help you build it into the style you want. From sleek and modern to something more eclectic to an updated traditional look. You can also reconfigure it just by adding or removing pieces. The sofa version is a great value at just $12.89. Come find the look that's right for you at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
I am blind, but I need not see. I know this road is there for me. if I'm really free.
The son of eliminated Iranian leader Ali Khamenei has been chosen to replace his father. Joining us now is Mike Sorelli, U.S. Navy SEAL veteran and military and national security analyst, and we have David Wormser, Middle East Affairs Analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former senior advisor to U.S. Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and strategic affairs. So good afternoon to you both. Mike, I'll start with you today. President Trump says that Iran's new leader is not going to last long if he's not approved by the United States. And the president had already disapproved of Khamenei's son, calling him a lightweight. So where do you see this going then?
Well, his son was probably already on the targeting list. He probably just sort of took a few leaps up and is at the top of the targeting list. Here's what I would caution. Whenever you remove the head of a snake, you've got to be careful about the one that's coming behind him. Khamenei's son is younger. He's more fanatical. His hatred for the U.S. and Israel is probably at a higher degree. So he wants to make some probably very aggressive moves early on in this war and strike against Israel and the U.S. So at the end of the day, we say the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. But he shouldn't last long, given the U.S. and Israelis' record so far of taking out regime leadership.
Okay, so David, let me go to you now. What do you think about this? And President Trump has said he needs to be personally involved in the selection process of a new leader.
Well, yeah, first of all, I think what Mike said at the very end, that he probably will be replaced fairly soon is already an important observation. Might be a more fanatic, or I'd say less refined than his father. I don't think more fanatic. And really, we are talking about a regime that most likely will choose an apocalyptic end rather than surrender. So who it is that rules it is probably important. It does drive home the point that there is.
Okay. All right, David, your internet is kind of iffy right now, so let me just talk to Mike while we get that fixed. So, Mike, you made the point earlier that if you cut off the snake, the head of the snake, perhaps there's another person to follow in the leader's steps. So how do we know Iran won't go back to how it was before when we have a new government? How do we make sure history doesn't repeat itself here?
Well, if you want to look at past examples, look at it this way. We took out Osama bin Laden. And usually when you hit cells like this or fanatical governments like this, they splinter, they mutate, and they often evolve worse. So, it's not that this government's going to be different. President Trump knows that. Anyone elected by this regime is going to be rejected by President Trump. The only option, and he's calling for an unconditional surrender, is somebody who's moderate, that has the people of Iran at the top of their agenda. It's no one from the IRGC. It's totally unacceptable. We will continue sustained kill chain operations, removing regime leadership while degrading what military assets remain. So nothing changes.
So why do you think President Trump says he prefers someone within Iran to govern rather than, say, Reza Pahlavi? Mike?
I think that's the ultimate goal, if the people of Iran can rise up. So look at the recent strikes on Iranians' oil. That wasn't a primary target. It was a backup. It's what we call a branch or a contingency plan, that we weren't seeing the degradation in the people, the degradation of the regime, and the people of Iran rise up. So now we're robbing them of their oil, which also indirectly robs China. So, people want results in such a quick manner. We need sustained operations for a few more weeks to continue to degrade and put the psychological pressure on this regime before there's any chance of the people of Iran trying to revolt and overthrow this government in order to reach free, democratic, and clear elections. And if that were to happen, Pahlavi is probably an answer that would come in for that interim government.
So, David, same question to you. Why do you think President Trump says he prefers someone within Iran to govern?
Well, Reza Pahlavi is a very good guy, and he's a good symbol of unity and continuity and even a more secular-oriented Iran. But at the end of the day, he's been out of the country for 47 years. And Iran is a very complex, difficult country to understand, very many pieces, and it's changed over 45 years. So those on the ground are, first of all, paying the price for their freedom with blood. They're aware of the ground truth in Iran. They understand Iranian politics. I'm talking about a leadership we can't see yet among the opposition in Iran that's inside the country. And they're the ones who are really going to run the show afterwards. So while the Shah can be a nice symbol, he can be a transitional figure that people can focus on and provide a sense of unity. He's not really going to be the operational leader that will take over Iran and run the country for the next 5 years.
Okay, Mike, can we get your comments on what Iran's strategy here is? Because over the weekend, Gulf states reported more damage to infrastructure. What is Iran doing? Why is it pulling in so many countries?
Well, Iran cannot take Israel and the U.S. combined through direct action. They know that. And right now, you have to understand, the regime leadership is a bunch of moles. They're hiding underground through their mosaic of underground tunnels and bunkers. The best chance they have, and people think it was a foolish notion, was to hit the infrastructure, data centers, oil refineries of their partnering nations in order to put economic pressure on the globe and control the information campaign and make this campaign less popular for the world, predominantly the US and Israel, and force pressure on them that way, not through direct combat. So that is the indirect approach, and the only approach they have at this time is to affect the energy market and raising prices.
David, is Iran putting pressure on the world? What are your thoughts on its strategic objectives?
Well, I agree with Mike said, and they are putting pressure. I mean, the oil prices going up briefly to $119 a barrel is certainly a concerning element. But again, it came back down, and I think there's enough solidity in the oil markets that we're talking about a fairly temporary bubble. As far as the strategic objectives go, I think Mike outlined most of them. I'd add two more. One is they know that there are certain sensitivities in Iran that can cause even an opposition that hates them to recoil and retrench. And one of them is this idea that there may be an all-out pan-Sunni attack against the nation of Iran, a Persian Shiite nation, from whether it's Turkey, Pakistan, etc. So they in many ways want to provoke a Sunni hostility toward Iran. And the second thing is that a breakup of Iran, they know that's a very great sensitivity in Iran. So they're the ones who are putting out a lot of this stuff about the Kurds are coming in, the Azeris are coming in, the Baloch are coming in, the Arabs are coming in, and they're going to partition our country, and they're going to set us off against each other in civil war. So a lot of the attacks also are trying to provoke that and provoke the image of that so that they can change the narrative of this war in a way that terrifies the Iranian people and maybe causes them to hunker down behind them.
Now, Mike, President Trump says the decision on when to end the war with Iran will be a mutual one with Israel a little bit, he says, and it's going to take everything into account. That decision will take everything into account. What specifically, in your view, might the administration consider when it comes to ending this war?
Well, I think it goes to the objectives from the beginning, which was to strike regime leadership, to degrade their regional strike capability, which they have done. The last figures I saw were 80% of air defenses have been destroyed, and something around 60% of their strike munitions or strike capability has been destroyed. So they have achieved that objective in limiting or degrading Iran's ability to conduct regional war or regional strikes. But there's also another element to this that adds to the timeline, and that is Congress. So right now he moved forward with the War Powers Resolution, which gives him a 60-day window to conduct these operations. And then additionally, he does have a 30-day withdrawal window on top of that. So I think that time calculus is going to be weighed in on their decision alongside Israel of when they cease direct, sustained operations against Iran.
So, David, let me get your thoughts on this. Ships in the Gulf are actually disguising themselves as Chinese ships. according to reports, to avoid attacks amid this conflict. It's very interesting. Can I get your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is something we also saw in the Straits of the Bab el-Mandeb earlier with the Houthis when they closed the straits, that they sort of came to an agreement with the Chinese to allow them through and China actually tried to use that to create an alternative shipping model that froze out countries that weren't sympathetic to China. So it was really a grand geopolitical power play to try to undermine the power of the U.S. and its Navy and establish essentially blackmail power over nations to give in to China. And then they would get free passage. We're not there yet with the Straits of Hormuz. This is more ships themselves re-identifying as China for the moment because Iran is not hitting Chinese ships as much or not hitting them at all. So this could be a potential second route where China sees an opportunity to establish a maritime blackmail component over global shipping that then they can leverage for political clout elsewhere. But at the moment, right now, it's simply ships protecting themselves ad hoc. But I would watch that very carefully, that development.
Okay, so Mike, let me just end the conversation with this question to you. A service member, a seventh one, has died after being hurt during the operation. We understand this is war and this is possible, that there will be casualties and there could be more in the future. But just talk to us about how you weigh this. In a conflict, what is the dynamic between risks of human life and achieving objectives? And how do we honor those that have made sacrifices?
Well, it's a great point, and I'm sure David would agree with me. You can't decouple those. You can't decouple military operations with the loss of life. We used to go with 3 rules in the military. Rule number 1, at war, young men die. Rule number 2, you can't change rule number 1. And then rule number 3, somebody must always walk point. Young men die at war. And that is the cost that never sits with me well as a 20-year military veteran who deployed multiple times during the global war on terror. The only thing I can say is, this is the best trained military. This is the most lethal military. My prayers and thoughts are with the service members that are downrange doing what they're asked to do. And our thoughts and prayers are with the families of these lost soldiers. Nothing we can say will assuage their pain, but hopefully time will bring a sense of pride that their young men and women stepped up for freedom and were willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice so that we can live the way we live in America. And that just takes time, but my prayers and thoughts are with them.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. Nothing we can do can bring these service members back. But Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said those service members will for sure be avenged. Okay, let's leave it there for today. Pleasure speaking to the both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
NATO air defenses have shot down a second ballistic missile fired from Iran that entered Turkish airspace. Turkey's defense ministry said the missile's debris fell in the southeast of the country. Here's more.
Officials say there were no casualties. This is the second Iranian missile to target NATO member Turkey in the past week. The ministry warns that Turkey will take all necessary steps without hesitation and urged all parties to heed its warnings. The situation underscores rising tensions in the region as the conflict in the Middle East continues to escalate. The U.S. State Department has ordered non-essential government staff and their families to leave the consulate general in southern Turkey, citing what it called safety risks. The consulate has suspended all consular services. In its advisory, the State Department also strongly urged American citizens in southeastern Turkey to leave the area now. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the EU must be prepared to project its power more assertively. She says the bloc of nations can no longer rely on a rules-based system against threats. The Commission President adding that the EU must determine if its institutions and systems help or hinder its credibility.
And I want to be clear. There should be no tears shed for the Iranian regime. This regime has inflicted death and imposed repression on its own people. They slaughtered 17,000 young people. And this regime has caused devastation and destabilization across the region through its proxies armed with missiles and drones. And many Iranians inside the country and across Europe and the world have celebrated Ayatollah Khamenei's demise.
Von der Leyen gave an example of projecting power more assertively. She said the EU must counter aggression and foreign interference with all of its tools, whether economic, diplomatic, technological, or military. She also said the bloc needs to be much more pragmatic when it comes to doing business around the world. The EU today also saying it plans to strengthen support for Gulf states by drawing on Ukraine's experience with drone defense.
President Trump dismissing the need for the UK's help in the war with Iran. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office says the two leaders did communicate over the weekend. Here's that story.
President Donald Trump has dismissed Britain's consideration of sending aircraft carriers to the Middle East, saying the United States does not need them to win the war with Iran.
We don't need them. It's not the right time. It would have been nice to have had them 2 weeks ago.
Trump was speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One after Britain's Defence Ministry said on Saturday it was preparing the Prince of Wales aircraft carrier for possible deployment. But no final decision had been taken about whether to send it to the Middle East, a British official said. In response, Trump posted on social media that he, quote, will remember the lack of British support during the conflict with Iran. The president has repeatedly criticised Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer over his stance on the war. He suggested this week that Starmer helped ruin the country's historically close ties after London blocked initial US use of British bases to attack Iran. Starmer has defended that decision, saying he needed to be satisfied that any military action was legal and well planned. He later granted US forces permission to use British bases for what he called limited and defensive strikes to weaken Tehran's capabilities. On Sunday, Starmer's office said the pair had spoken on Iran as two US Air Force planes arrived at an airbase in England. The Prime Minister's office released a statement saying the use of Royal Air Force bases was discussed, quote, in support of the collective self-defense of partners in the region. Starmer's office did not address Trump's criticisms, but said the Prime Minister offered his condolences over the deaths of 6 US soldiers killed in the conflict.
The FBI is obtaining 2020 election records from Arizona, what the Arizona Senate president says about the Trump administration's latest subpoena. Stay with us for more news after this break.
Disasters are not a matter of if, but when. And they're happening in communities like ours more often.
Even before disaster strikes, hunger is already a crisis in America. But a disaster tests the very heart of who we are as a community. Food is scarce. But it's in these moments of crisis that our strength shines through. Because as neighbors, we lead the way forward. Please join with Feeding America, and let's be there for families in crisis. Call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Rushes food, water, and urgent supplies into communities just like yours.
They called us immediately and said, what can we do?
It's those partnerships that come together and respond to recovery.
Feeding America works with local food banks to get immediate relief to families as they recover. And we stay for as long as it takes. Because disasters don't wait. And neither do we.
They delivered a truckload of food to us to undergird what we had.
Every box of food, every bottle of water, shows the power of neighbors being there for each other. When we work together, we are never alone. Call or donate online at givetofeedingamerica.org. Your gift will be so much more than a donation. It will be a filling meal for a child, comfort for a family in crisis.
We need to be there for our community for the next 40 years, just like we were for the last 40 years. And that's helping people build back in a way that is as strong as possible.
Please call or go online and give right now. With your monthly gift, we'll send you this exclusive canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
We're definitely here during the storm, and we're going to be here long after the storm.
But we need your support to continue being there for your community, for you, and for every family facing a crisis. Please call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org and make your urgent gift today.
Introducing the Quest-Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens